A lonely millionaire took his assistant to a ball his friends mocked him until she walked in. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new video. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. That evening, the city lights of New York shimmered against the glass walls of Cole Industries. Inside the top-floor office, Ethan Cole stood alone, a man whose name once made headlines for innovation and now for heartbreak. His ex-fiancée had left him just 6 months ago for his best friend. Since then, his world had grown silent. The hum of his office machines was the only thing that kept him company after midnight. The annual Winter Gala for Innovation was approaching, a grand charity ball attended by every major figure in the tech world. Ethan had ignored it for years. But this time, the board had insisted he attend to restore his image. The press had already printed the guest list, leaving one line blank under his name, Guest, TBD. He looked down at the invitation on his desk, its gold edges catching the light. The words, "Black tie required," felt heavier than they should. His assistant, Lena Hart, stood by the door, holding a stack of reports. She was quiet, the kind of woman people never noticed twice until they spoke to her. Soft-spoken, unfailingly kind, yet often invisible in a world that worshipped glamour. "Sir," she said, her tone careful, "do you still want me to confirm your attendance for Saturday?" Ethan looked at her, studying her calm eyes behind those modest glasses. Then, as if a thought formed from pure impulse, he said, "Yes, and book 2 seats." Her brow furrowed. "2 seats?" He leaned back, lips curling into something that was not quite a smile. "You are coming with me, Lena." The pen slipped from her hand. "I am sorry, me? You heard me right. I need a partner for that night. It is a formal event. Appearances matter." She blinked, unsure whether he was serious. "Mr. Cole, that does not sound appropriate. I am your assistant." Ethan shrugged. "Exactly. Which means I can trust you. And if people talk, let them. They always do." His words hung in the air, heavy with something unspoken. The city lights flickered behind him, a faint reflection of 2 people from entirely different worlds. Lena hesitated, searching for the right response. "I do not even own a gown for something like that." "Then we will fix that," he said, already turning toward his computer. "There is a boutique downtown. They owe me a favor." Quote, the conversation ended as abruptly as it began, but the tension it left behind was electric. Lena stepped out of the office, her heart pounding, her mind spinning. Was this real? Or just another power move from a man who could buy anything, including company, for the night? When she returned to her desk, whispers rippled through the hallway. The staff had heard enough to start speculating. "Did you hear? The boss is bringing his assistant to the gala." One laughed softly. "Desperate or romantic?" Another chimed in. "Probably just business. Or maybe he finally lost his mind." But in the quiet of her small apartment that night, Lena could not stop thinking about it. She stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror, trying to imagine herself walking beside him in a ballroom full of millionaires. It was absurd. Yet somehow, she could not bring herself to decline. When her phone buzzed, she froze. A new message from Ethan. "The car will pick you up at 7. Wear something you feel powerful in." Powerful. She almost laughed. She did not even own perfume that cost more than $20. But there was something about his message, a challenge, or maybe a dare that she could not ignore. And somewhere deep down, beneath the disbelief and nerves, was a flicker of curiosity. Why her? Why now? Would you ever accept an invitation like that from your boss, knowing the whole city might judge you for it? The morning light slid across the skyline, painting the glass towers of Manhattan gold. Lena woke up long before the alarm rang. The message from Ethan still glowed on her phone screen. "The car will pick you up at 7. Wear something you feel powerful in." She reread it more times than she wanted to admit. It felt like a dream that could turn into a nightmare at any second. Her apartment smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. On the counter sat her wallet with exactly $17 inside. She stared at it, then at the cracked mirror above the sink. "Powerful," she whispered to her reflection. Right. By noon, she was standing outside a boutique that looked far too expensive for someone like her. A stylist greeted her with a bright smile. Mr. Cole called ahead. "Everything is ready." Quote, "Everything?" The words made her throat tighten. Inside, velvet curtains shimmered in the light, and racks of gowns in silk and satin lined the room. The stylist handed her a deep emerald dress. "Try this one," he said. "Green suits you." When she stepped out of the fitting room, she barely recognized herself. The dress hugged her in a way that felt elegant, not loud. The stylist added silver earrings and a simple pair of heels. For a moment, she stood still, unsure if this was admiration or disbelief staring back from the mirror. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan sat in a meeting that he barely heard. The board discussed projections and contracts, but his mind drifted elsewhere. His assistant was going to walk into a ballroom filled with people who judged others by the brand of their shoes. He could already hear the whispers. He brought his assistant? It was reckless, maybe even stupid. But for some reason, he wanted to see what would happen when someone real stepped into that room. By evening, the penthouse gleamed under the reflection of city lights. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, black suit pressed to perfection. When the elevator chimed, he turned and froze. Lena stepped out slowly, clutching a small silver clutch. The transformation was quiet but undeniable. For a second, he could not find his voice. "You look," he cleared his throat. "You look perfect." Quote. Lena smiled awkwardly. "That is the first time anyone has used that word on me." He offered his arm. "Then maybe it will not be the last." The car ride to the gala was almost silent. Outside, snow drifted lazily against the windows. Inside, tension filled the air. Lena fiddled with the bracelet he had given her the day before, its cool silver pressing against her wrist. "Mr. Cole," she said softly. "Why me?" He looked out at the city. "Because you are not afraid to tell me the truth. Everyone else is." She turned to face him, surprised. "And what truth do you think I have?" "That I am lonely," he said almost to himself. "And I hate that people only notice me when I walk into a room with someone on my arm." Lena hesitated, not sure what to say. The honesty in his voice was disarming. "Loneliness is not something money fixes," she said finally. Ethan's eyes flicked to her. "Maybe not, but maybe kindness does." The rest of the drive passed in thoughtful silence. When the car pulled up to the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, flashes from cameras lit the snow-covered steps. A line of luxury cars waited ahead. Ethan stepped out first, the crowd instantly recognizing him. Then he extended his hand toward the car. Lena took a deep breath and stepped into the light. For a moment, everything paused: the music, the chatter, even the photographers. Her emerald gown shimmered against the marble steps. The whispers began almost immediately. "Is that his assistant?" "She cannot be serious. What is she doing here?" But Lena kept walking, her arm steady in Ethan's. When she glanced at him, he did not look embarrassed or hesitant. He looked proud. Inside the ballroom, chandeliers glowed like constellations. A violin quartet played softly in the background. Ethan leaned closer. "Ignore them," he said. "They see what they want to see." Lena nodded, forcing a calm smile. Yet her heart raced as she realized this was only the beginning. Tonight, the line between pretend and real was about to blur, and neither of them would leave unchanged. The ballroom was alive with gold light and murmured gossip. Crystal chandeliers scattered tiny stars across polished marble, and the air smelled faintly of champagne and money. Ethan guided Lena through the crowd, every step echoing the rhythm of curious stares. It did not take long for the whispers to grow teeth. Near the bar, two executives from the board leaned close together. "That cannot be her," one murmured. "His assistant?" The other laughed quietly. "Guess loneliness makes strange choices." Lena heard every word. She kept her posture straight, chin slightly lifted, though her heart thudded against her ribs. Ethan noticed the flicker of discomfort in her eyes and leaned closer. "Do not listen to them," he said under his breath. "They have forgotten how to recognize grace when it is standing right in front of them." She managed a small smile, but the comment that followed cut deeper. One of Ethan's old friends, a man named Richard Hale, approached with a glass of champagne in each hand. "Ethan, my friend," he said smoothly, clapping his shoulder, "you never cease to surprise us. Is this your new strategy? Hire your date from HR?" Laughter rippled through the small group around him. Lena froze, the color draining from her cheeks. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone, Richard." "Oh, come on," Richard smirked. "It is just a joke. We all know you like efficiency." "Maybe she is both assistant and companion, two salaries for the price of one." The table went silent. For a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to pause. Lena took a slow breath, her hands trembling slightly. Then she turned toward Richard, her voice calm but steady. Then it is a good thing I do not work in accounting, she said evenly, because I would never reduce people to numbers. The laughter died instantly. Even the string quartet seemed to hesitate mid-note. Ethan stared at her, half in shock and half in admiration. Richard's smirk faded, replaced by awkward silence. "Well, I suppose you have a sense of humor," he muttered before walking away. Ethan turned to Lena. "You did not have to do that." She looked at him, eyes clear. "I know, but I will not let anyone make me small to make themselves feel tall." Something shifted in his expression, then respect, maybe something deeper. "You just saved me from saying something I would have regretted," he said quietly. "You handled that better than any executive I know." "Years of practice," she replied softly. "People underestimate waitresses, secretaries, assistants. You learn to stay calm while others throw their words like stones." Quote. For the first time that night, Ethan smiled without effort. "Then I owe you a debt." "No," Lena said. "You just owe me a dance." He blinked, surprised. "A dance?" She nodded toward the grand floor where couples moved beneath the chandeliers. "You brought me here to play the part, did you not? Let us play it well." The orchestra swelled, violins rising like a tide. Ethan offered his hand. When Lena placed hers in it, the noise of the ballroom melted away. The world narrowed to their steps, their breaths, the quiet connection between them that neither wanted to name. As they moved together, she realized his hand was warm, grounding, nothing like the cold distance she had expected. And Ethan, for the first time in months, forgot how to calculate. He was not thinking about mergers, profits, or the headlines waiting outside. He was thinking about the woman in green, who looked like she had always belonged under the light. When the music slowed, applause filled the room. Lena stepped back, her cheeks flushed. "That was not part of the contract," she teased gently. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Maybe it should have been. They both laughed, soft and genuine. Yet beneath that moment of calm, a strange awareness lingered. The gala had been meant to prove a point, but something unplanned was happening. Outside the ballroom doors, a reporter snapped a photo Ethan's hand around Lena's waist. Her eyes lifted toward him, the perfect picture of scandal, or something far more complicated. Later that night, when the last guests had left, Lena stepped out onto the balcony to breathe. The city stretched below, glittering and endless. Ethan joined her quietly, his voice low. "You were extraordinary tonight." She shook her head. "I was just being myself." "Exactly," he said. "That is what they will never understand." He handed her his coat as the wind picked up, and for a moment neither spoke. Beneath the cold December sky, something fragile yet undeniable sparked between them, something neither contract nor caution could contain. Would you have stood up for yourself in her place, even if it meant facing a room full of powerful people? The following morning, the headlines had already spread across every major business site in the city. Tech billionaire Ethan Cole seen dancing with his assistant at the Winter Gala. The photo from the night before showed Ethan's hand on Lena's waist, her face turned up toward him, caught mid-smile. The caption beneath read, "Office romance or publicity stunt?" Lena saw it first. She froze in the subway car, the newspaper glaring up from someone's lap. A woman beside her whispered, "That is him, right? The coal industries guy?" Lena turned away quickly, cheeks burning. The ride to work had never felt longer. When she arrived at the office, the air buzzed with tension. Conversations stopped when she walked past. Phones were lowered. Screens were switched off. The same people who used to overlook her now stared openly, half curious, half cruel. In his glass office, Ethan was already waiting. He looked calm, but the muscle in his jaw moved when he saw her. "Lena," he said, motioning for her to close the door. She obeyed, standing by the desk. "I did not know the photographers were outside. I should have been more careful." "This is not your fault," Ethan replied. "It was bound to happen. The press eats stories like this for breakfast." She met his gaze. "But it affects you more than me." He shook his head. "It affects both of us. I do not want them painting you as some kind of—" He stopped himself before saying the word. Lena finished it for him quietly. "Scandal?" Ethan sighed. "You deserve better than that word. Goo." The silence that followed was heavy. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If this makes you uncomfortable, we can end the arrangement. I will make sure you are transferred to another department." She frowned. "You think that fixes anything? Running away just tells them they were right." Ethan studied her, a trace of admiration in his eyes. "You have more courage than most of the people on my board." "I am not brave," she said softly. I am just tired of people deciding what kind of woman I am without ever asking. For a moment he almost smiled. Then his phone buzzed. His expression hardened as he read the message. The board wants an emergency meeting this afternoon. Apparently, our relationship is affecting the company image. I see, Lena murmured. Do they want me to disappear? They will not get that wish, Ethan said firmly. Not this time. Hours later, the meeting room was full. 11 board members, polished, serious, and disapproving, sat around the long glass table. The photo was projected on the screen behind Ethan. The whispers from the gala had found their way into every investor's inbox. One of the older men cleared his throat. Ethan, you have every right to a personal life, but bringing an assistant to a public event crosses boundaries. The company's reputation is at stake. Ethan's voice was steady. What reputation are we protecting? The one that worships status but forgets decency. Another member leaned forward. You cannot let emotions cloud judgment. Ethan's gaze swept across the room. This was not about emotion. It was about respect. Lena earned her place by competence, not favoritism. She has done more for this company than half the people who gossip about her. The room fell silent. Lena sat at the end of the table, her hands folded in her lap. Every instinct told her to stay quiet, but something in his tone pushed her forward. May I say something? All eyes turned toward her. She rose slowly, her voice calm but unwavering. I understand why this looks strange, but I will not apologize for standing beside someone who treats people with decency. If that ruins your image of professionalism, then maybe it is time to redefine professionalism. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Ethan's closest rival broke the silence. Strong words for an assistant. Lena met his stare. Strong words are all I have, but they are honest. The meeting adjourned with tension thick as fog. Outside, Ethan caught up to her near the elevator. You did not have to defend me, he said. I was not defending you, she replied. I was defending myself. He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, I think we are both doing more than we expected. That night, the city lights flickered like a promise waiting to be kept. Would you have spoken up in a room like that, knowing your voice could cost you everything? Snow was falling again, soft and silent, when Lena left the office that night. Her breath fogged the air as she walked toward the subway station. Every step felt heavier than the one before. The city glowed with Christmas lights, but the warmth they promised did not reach her heart. Her phone vibrated with messages she did not want to read. News alerts, articles, comment threads filled with strangers dissecting her face, her dress, her smile. Gold digger. Smart move, playing the assistant card. Classic scandal bait. The words blurred together until they no longer made sense. She reached the bottom of the station stairs and stopped. For a brief second, she wanted to disappear into the crowd and never come back. But she could not. Not after what she had said in that meeting. If she backed down now, her words would mean nothing. At the same time, on the other side of the city, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse, a single glass of whiskey untouched on the table. The skyline stretched before him, bright and indifferent. The day's events replayed in his mind, the looks, the accusations, the flash of courage in Lena's eyes when she spoke. He had built his empire on control, but now, for the first time in years, something had slipped beyond his reach. His phone buzzed with an incoming call. Richard Hale's name appeared on the screen. Ethan hesitated before answering. What do you want, Richard? Damage control, Richard replied smoothly. You made quite the scene today. The investors are nervous. You have a week to fix this before they call for your resignation. Ethan's tone hardened. I will not apologize for treating someone with respect. Richard chuckled. Respect does not pay shareholders, my friend. Be smart. Cut her loose before she drags you down with her. The call ended with silence. Ethan stared at the glass of whiskey, then poured it down the sink. He picked up his phone again and typed a message. Meet me tomorrow at 8 a.m. in the atrium, please. Then he set the phone face down and waited for the night to end. The next morning, the office buzzed with gossip as usual, but when Lena stepped into the atrium, she found Ethan waiting beside a small table. A breakfast spread was laid out: coffee, croissants, fruit. It was strangely human of him. Is this a peace offering? She asked, arching a brow. Maybe, he said. Or maybe it is my way of saying thank you. She sat down across from him. For what? For embarrassing the board? For reminding them what integrity looks like, he replied simply. Lena took a sip of coffee, watching him over the rim of her cup. You are serious about this. You really do not care what they think. I care, he said. But I care more about what is right. There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Do you know what the board suggested? That I announce a fake engagement to one of our investors' daughters, to stabilize my image. Lena blinked, half amused, half horrified. You are kidding. I wish I were. They think love can be manufactured like a press release. She smiled faintly. Maybe it can if you have enough money. He leaned forward, eyes steady on hers. Do you believe that? No, she said quietly. I believe love has to be chosen, not purchased. The air between them grew still, fragile. For a moment, neither of them looked away. Then Ethan's phone buzzed again. He ignored it. Across the atrium, a few employees had stopped pretending not to watch. Whispers drifted through the glass walls. They are still at it. I heard the board is furious. Maybe he really likes her. Lena sighed, setting her cup down. You know they will never stop talking. Let them, Ethan said. I am done living by other people's approval. Outside the window, snow drifted past the glass like slow-moving stars. Lena looked out at the city, her reflection overlapping his in the window. What happens next? She asked. Ethan's answer was quiet but certain. We face it. Together. And for the first time since this began, Lena believed him. The contract that had started as a performance was slowly turning into something else, something real, something dangerous, something neither of them had expected. Neither of them noticed the camera flash from across the street. Someone was still watching, waiting to turn their truth into another headline. Would you still stand beside someone if the world decided to turn your loyalty into a scandal? That night, the city outside Ethan's penthouse looked like a constellation come to life. The storm had cleared, leaving Manhattan draped in silver light. Inside, everything was still, except for Ethan. He stood by the window, sleeves rolled up, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low but edged with frustration. I said no, Richard, he repeated, pacing the floor. There will be no press conference, no apology statement, and definitely no fake engagement. On the other end, Richard's tone was sharp. You are making a mistake. You think the public cares about your principles? They want a spectacle. They want a story. You are giving them one. I am giving them the truth, Ethan said coldly. For once, that has to be enough. He ended the call and tossed the phone onto the couch. The silence that followed was deafening. For years, Ethan had navigated his world with precision deals, contracts, mergers, but nothing had prepared him for this. Feelings could not be negotiated, and Lena was no business transaction. Across town, Lena was sitting at her kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills and the soft hum of the refrigerator. She should have felt regret, fear, even guilt, but instead, there was only a strange calm. She had told the truth, stood her ground, and somehow she was still standing. Her phone vibrated. A message from Ethan appeared. Can we talk? Rooftop, 8 p.m. She hesitated before typing back one word. Okay. When she arrived, the rooftop was quiet, the night air crisp. Ethan was already there, leaning against the railing, a single lamp casting golden light on the snow-covered deck. He turned when he heard her footsteps. You came? He said. I said I would, she replied, folding her arms to keep warm. He studied her for a moment before speaking. The board wants me out. They say I have lost perspective. Have you? Maybe I finally found it, he said. They see you as a distraction. I see you as the only person who tells me the truth. Quote. Lena took a step closer. Ethan, this cannot keep going like this. They are not just questioning your decisions anymore. They are questioning your sanity. He laughed softly. Let them. I've spent half my life building a world where people smiled to my face and sold my name behind my back. You walked into that gala, and for the first time the noise stopped. Lena looked at him, unsure whether to be touched or terrified. You should not say things like that. Good quote. Why not? He asked, taking a slow step toward her. Because people might think it is real? She held his gaze. Because I might start to believe it. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and dangerous. The city's hum faded beneath the weight of silence. Ethan exhaled, the cold breath visible in the light. Maybe that is the point. Maybe this stopped being an act the moment you looked me in the eye and refused to apologize for existing. Lena shook her head, her voice trembling slightly. This was supposed to be a contract. You promised me it would not get personal. And I broke that promise, he admitted. I am sorry. She turned away, blinking fast. Sorry does not fix the world outside. You will lose everything if you keep this up. Then maybe it is worth losing, he said quietly. Because what I am starting to feel does not belong in boardrooms or contracts. It belongs here, with you. Quote. For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the wind brushing against the rooftop garden. Lena's heart pounded. She could not decide if she was standing at the edge of something beautiful or disastrous. Finally, she whispered, You do not even know who I really am. Ethan smiled faintly. I know enough, and I want to learn the rest. A long pause followed before Lena spoke again. You should go inside, Ethan. It is freezing. He nodded slowly, stepping back. Good night, Lena. Go, Chloe. She turned to leave, her footsteps light against the snow. But as she reached the door, she stopped. Ethan, she said softly without turning around. If you mean what you said, do not let the world turn it into another performance. The door closed behind her, leaving him alone under the New York sky. He looked down at his hands, the faint silver of her bracelet catching the rooftop light. Would you walk away from someone you cared about if staying meant risking everything you built? The next morning brought a storm that had nothing to do with weather. When Ethan walked into the office, the building's air felt different, thick, expectant, and cold. People looked away as he passed. Phones were lifted to ears, whispers ran like static. His assistant's desk was empty. He stopped, staring at the vacant chair where Lena usually sat her day. The mug she always used, the one that said "Good days start with honesty," was gone. A sinking feeling grew in his chest. He walked straight to his office, where an envelope waited on his desk. His name was written on it in neat, careful handwriting. He opened it slowly. Inside was a short note. Thank you for everything, Mr. Cole. But this story is no longer mine to stand in. Please do not look for me, Lena. For a long time, he just stood there, the paper trembling slightly in his hand. Then his phone began to ring. It was Richard again. Ethan, Richard said briskly, I told you she would become a liability. You will thank me later. I spoke to the board this morning. We are arranging a public statement clearing the air. You will announce that Miss Hart has been reassigned to another company branch. Quiet, respectful, clean. Ethan's voice was ice. You spoke to the board about her? I spoke for you, Richard corrected. You were too close to see reason. This way, we contain the damage. Ethan ended the call without a word. He stood by the window, staring at the city far below. The people who claimed to protect him were the same ones who had quietly erased the only person who made him feel alive. That evening, he searched for her anyway. He called every number he had, every contact she had ever mentioned. Nothing. Her phone was disconnected. Her apartment was empty. It was as if she had vanished from the city altogether. Days passed. Rumors shifted, then faded. New scandals replaced old ones. The world moved on, but Ethan did not. He went to work, signed documents, attended meetings, but inside, everything felt muted. One afternoon, while reviewing proposals for a charity expansion, he noticed a familiar name printed at the bottom of one file, the Open Hands Project. Founder, L. Hart. His heart stopped. He called his secretary immediately. Find out where this foundation is based, he ordered. It is a community center in Brooklyn, she replied. It focuses on job training and education for women. Within an hour, Ethan was standing in front of the building. It was small, painted white with a faded sign. Through the glass doors, he saw Lena, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, kneeling beside a group of women who were sorting donated books. Her laughter filled the room like sunlight. For a moment, he just watched. She looked peaceful, unguarded, exactly as she should have been all along. Then she turned and froze when she saw him. Ethan, she said quietly, standing up, you should not be here. I had to see you, he replied. You left without saying goodbye. I said it in the note. He shook his head. That was not goodbye. That was surrender. Her expression softened, but her eyes stayed firm. I could not stay, Ethan. They were tearing you apart because of me. They were wrong, he said, and I was wrong for letting them. She crossed her arms. You cannot fight the entire system. You will lose everything. Then let me lose it, he said simply. Because without you, I already have. The room was quiet except for the faint sound of rain tapping the windows. One of the volunteers glanced their way and smiled knowingly before turning back to her work. Lena looked at Ethan for a long moment, the tension between them heavy and familiar. This place needs me, she said softly. I know, he replied. That is why I want to help. Not as your boss, not as your savior, just as someone who believes in what you are building. Her eyes filled with unshed tears. You do not even know if I forgive you. Ethan took a careful step closer. Then let me earn it. For the first time in weeks, Lena did not move away. The storm inside both of them finally quieted, replaced by something steady, something real. The next few weeks blurred into something Lena could hardly name. Ethan kept his word. He did not bring photographers, reporters, or board members. He simply showed up, quietly, again and again. Every morning, a delivery truck arrived at the Open Hands project, loaded with supplies, computers, textbooks, art materials. The first time Lena confronted him about it, he smiled and said, "Consider it a partnership. You built the heart. I am just helping with the walls." She wanted to argue, but there was no arrogance in his voice. He swept floors beside volunteers, handed out meals, repaired old furniture. The same hands that once signed billion-dollar contracts were now helping hang curtains and fix light bulbs. It was absurd, maybe even reckless, but it was real. One evening, as the winter sky faded into violet, Lena found him in the community library, stacking donated books. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly messy. She leaned against the doorway, watching quietly. "You do realize CEOs are not supposed to know how to work a hammer," she teased. He looked up, smiling faintly. "You would be surprised what I am capable of when the press is not watching." She walked closer. "I should thank you. The donations have doubled since you got involved." He shook his head. "Do not thank me. I am the one learning from you. I built companies, but you built a place that actually matters." Lena looked at him, unsure what to say. There was no performance left in his tone, only sincerity. "You have changed," she said quietly. Ethan met her gaze. "No, I am finally becoming who I was supposed to be." The words lingered in the air, soft but heavy. Days later, the community center prepared for its first major fundraiser. Lena worked tirelessly, making sure every table, every banner, every volunteer was ready. She did not know Ethan had planned something else behind the scenes. That night, the small hall buzzed with music and laughter. Dozens of donors, teachers, and families filled the space. Ethan stood near the stage, dressed in a simple gray suit, looking nothing like the billionaire in the headlines. When Lena stepped up to thank the guests, her voice trembled slightly. "I started this place because I wanted women like me to know they were not invisible," she said. "But I did not do it alone. Someone believed in me when it was not convenient to. And tonight, I want to thank that person." Ethan blinked, surprised. The room turned toward him as she smiled. "Mr. Cole, you reminded us that kindness does not make us weak. It makes us unbreakable." Applause filled the room. Ethan's throat tightened. When the noise softened, he took a slow breath and walked toward the stage. "May I say something?" he asked. Lena nodded. He turned to the audience. "I have spent years thinking success was about control, but this woman taught me that leadership is not measured by power, it is measured by how many lives you lift." He paused, the emotion catching in his voice. "Lena Hart gave me back something I did not realize I had lost my purpose." The crowd applauded again, louder this time. Lena's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. When the room quieted, Ethan faced her directly. "I know we started with a contract, and I know it was never supposed to mean anything. But it did. It changed everything." Quote. He reached into his pocket and held up a small velvet box. Inside was not a ring, but the silver bracelet he had given her months ago, now engraved with a single word: believe. "I had this made before you left," he said. "I kept it because I thought it was a reminder of my failure. But now I think it belongs to you again." The hall was silent. Lena stepped forward slowly, her hand trembling as she touched the bracelet. "You remembered?" she whispered. "I never forgot," he said softly. "Not for one day." She looked at him, her heart full of everything she could not say. Around them, the guests faded into applause once more, gentle, warm, and endless. Ethan fastened the bracelet on her wrist, his fingers brushing lightly against her skin. "No contracts," he said, "just honesty." Lena smiled through her tears. "Then we have a deal." The night of the fundraiser lingered in Lena's memory like a dream that refused to fade. The applause, the laughter, the look in Ethan's eyes, it all felt too unreal, too fragile to touch. But the bracelet on her wrist was proof that it had happened, and that it was real. The word believe glimmered softly every time she moved her hand. Weeks passed. The Open Hands project grew faster than anyone had imagined. News outlets picked up the story of the billionaire who traded boardrooms for kindness, and for once, the headlines were kind. The board of coal industries had no choice but to acknowledge the public's admiration. Investors returned, the company's image recovered, and Ethan's defiance turned into legend. But he was no longer interested in the spotlight. Most mornings, he was at the community center long before dawn, helping unload supplies or fixing coffee for volunteers. Lena often found him there, sleeves rolled up, hair tousled, greeting everyone by name. He had changed in quiet ways, the kind that did not need to be announced. One morning, as they stood by the window watching the sunrise, Lena said softly, "You know, I never thought this place would last." Ethan looked at her with a small smile. "You were wrong about that, just like you were wrong about me." She laughed gently. "Maybe. Or maybe we both just needed time to become who we were supposed to be." He turned toward her fully then. "Lena, I meant what I said that night. No contracts, no pretenses. But I cannot imagine doing any of this without you." Her breath caught. "Ethan, I am not asking for forgiveness anymore," he said. "I am asking for forever." He pulled a small box from his coat pocket, not velvet this time, but a simple wooden one, carved with the same word engraved on her bracelet. Inside was a ring of silver and gold, understated yet beautiful. Lena's hand went to her mouth. "You planned this?" He nodded, his voice low and certain. "I waited until I knew it was not about fixing an image or winning approval. I waited until I knew it was about love." Tears blurred her vision. She did not answer immediately. The past between them was full of mistakes, but also miracles. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "Yes, but only if you promise one thing." "Anything," he said. "Promise that this us will always stay real, no matter what the world says." Ethan smiled, relief breaking across his face. "That is the only kind of promise I know how to keep." The day they married was simple. No cameras, no media, no glittering chandeliers. The ceremony was held on the rooftop of the community center, under a sky painted with the colors of dawn. The volunteers gathered as witnesses, many of them wiping quiet tears. Lena wore a white dress she had sewn herself. Ethan wore the same gray suit he had worn the night he gave her back the bracelet. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," the crowd cheered, their voices echoing against the city skyline. Ethan whispered against her ear, "They once laughed when I brought you to a ballroom. Now, they will remember this as the only night that ever mattered." She smiled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I never needed a ballroom, Ethan. I just needed to know I was seen." He brushed his thumb against her face. "You were always seen. I just had to open my eyes." Go on. As the morning light broke over New York, they stood hand in hand, two people who had once met through a contract and now stood bound by choice. Around them, the laughter of volunteers and the distant hum of the city blended into one gentle chorus of life. Later that evening, when the last guests had left, Lena found Ethan on the rooftop staring at the skyline. She slipped her arms around him from behind. "Do you ever think about that first night? The gala?" He chuckled softly. "Every day. It was the night the world mocked me, and the night I met the woman who changed my life." Lena rested her head against his back. "Funny how a mistake turned out to be the best decision we ever made." Ethan turned, kissing her forehead. "Then let us keep making mistakes worth remembering." The camera of the night sky pulled back, leaving only the glow of the rooftop lights, the sound of soft laughter, and the bracelet glinting on her wrist. Would you believe that something which began as a deal could turn into a love that outlasted every judgment?